Okay, so for the pathology, I feel like she did a really good job explaining that. Definitely went into good detail about what's going on as far as how glucose can affect different systems in the body. I didn't feel like there was a direct mention of therapeutic considerations in this case, but they were mentioned all throughout, just kind of indirectly. So I feel like they're all touched. One that I would add to that though is probably just considering treatment times in the morning, mainly because they fasted all night and blood sugar is a little lower. Therefore, it's not going to be spiked up real high with the increased blood pressure and everything that could lead to more further damage. And also maybe around insulin treatments, making sure that we're not working out directly after having an insulin shot because that's going to lower blood sugar levels. And as we're working out, we're going to need more sugar in the cells, and that could put us in a hypoglycemic state, and we don't want that to happen. Some other things as far as risk factors go, I feel like she did a really good job mentioning everything that was going on. Pretty good. I understand with these little 8-minute videos, it's hard to get it all in there. Um, One thing I think that should have been mentioned though is that he's on multiple medications and they have a lot of different side effects. They could have a synergistic effect depending on what they are and how they work. So that's just something that we need to monitor as far as lab values, things like that, which kind of was mentioned anyway. Another thing that maybe should have got mentioned was a risk factor for him is just being bedridden in the multiple hospitalizations. We know that that's going to have a huge effect in the cardiovascular system and possible DVTs and things like that whenever we're working with physical therapy. So as far as medication goes, I feel like she went into good depth over everything that could be going on with all these different medications as best she could. One thing I think we should have been mentioned with albuterol is just making sure that he has that inhaler with him whenever he's exercising or doing anything with PT, just in case he has some kind of bronchospasm or something. That way it's right there on hand. Some other things as far as yellow flags. One thing I would have added to that is just he's had the right total knee replacement a while back. I think it was 2 years ago. That's something just to consider because he's already had an amputation on the other side. So now we're having to deal with that along with a prior surgery on the other side, trying to help with balance and things like that. And then just another red flag was just the multiple hospitalizations, which I already kind of covered with the risk factors as far as DVTs and things like that. That's going to be diminished with cardiovascular system. As far as contextual factors, I feel like one thing that should have been mentioned was probably he has been a smoker for 40 years. He's quit, but still that's going to have a huge effect on the cardiovascular system, and we know that how that's going to affect healing and things like that. So that's definitely a contextual factor that's going to play into this, and also the half bath being on the first floor, just making that difference between having to go upstairs and downstairs to get to the bathroom and things like that. Or when he's on the first floor, he ain't able to only take a bath or do anything like that. The only thing he can do is use a restroom there. So he's going to have to go back and forth up and stairs. So that's going to be an issue. As far as a prioritized system list, I think she did a really good job. Cardiovascular for sure is going to be the first thing that I'm going to look at here. But the only thing I would have done differently, and just in my opinion, the second thing I would have looked at is probably respiratory. He has COPD. He's been hospitalized over and over. He's been in the bed for a while. All these things are going to play into his respiratory function and just the overall cardiovascular pulmonary system as a whole. So these are things that's one thing I would have added to that. And as far as prognosis, I would assume the same. I would say it's a fair prognosis, and he's got a lot of contextual factors that are playing into his overall prognosis, and she did a really good job of just kind of wrapping and summing that up.